The story begins with one harsh truth: being born into a rich family doesn't guarantee happiness. A young girl is brought into a powerful duke's household. The duke introduces her to his sons. "She's your younger sister now. Take good care of her." But they never do. Instead of becoming family, she's treated like an unwanted outsider. None of her three brothers ever accept her. Years later, she leaves the mansion with nothing but a suitcase. For the first time in years, she smiles. Finally, she's free. She remembers the years of bullying at home, and even at school. Her father never once protected her. Yet she endures everything, studies hard, and earns admission to a prestigious university. At last, she escapes that family forever. One day, she overhears two students talking about a hit romance game. Curious, she searches for it. Its name is Daughter of the Duke Love Project. The game follows Yvonne, the Duke's real daughter who disappeared as a child and finally returns home. Your mission is simple: help Yvonne win the hearts of the male leads, reclaim her place in the family, and defeat the villainess. She expects a typical romance game, but after starting it, she can't stop. Hours turn into an entire day. Completely hooked, she clears her first ending. Then a new message appears: hidden ending unlocked. But unlocking it costs 100,000 won. Before giving up, she notices another option: clear hard mode, and unlock it for free. Without thinking twice, she starts hard mode. A new message appears. The villain is now the main character. This time, the story won't follow Yvonne. It begins with Penelope Eckhart. Every time she played hard mode, the result was always the same: death. Again, I died. Frustrated, she threw her phone aside. Unlike normal mode, one wrong choice in hard mode meant instant death. Penelope died over and over again. In one route, she was stabbed straight through the chest, just because she stepped on someone's foot. No matter what Penelope did, everyone hated her. But instead of giving up, she became even more determined. She only needed to survive. Once, she realized Penelope hadn't become a villain for no reason. She became one because she had never received even the smallest amount of affection. Unlike Yvonne, who easily won everyone's hearts, Penelope received nothing but hatred. Looking at Penelope, she couldn't help seeing herself. At that moment, she decided she would save Penelope. Again, and again, and again. She kept pressing reset, but every attempt ended the same way. Game over. After countless failures, she collapsed onto her bed. Suddenly, everything around her turned bright. Then she heard a voice. "My lady, wake up." She slowly opened her eyes. A maid was standing beside her bed. Confused, she looked around. She remembered falling asleep while playing the game. She had hoped it was all a dream, but it wasn't. The terrifying truth finally sank in. She had really become Penelope Eckhart. As she tried to move, a sharp pain shot through her entire body. The maid calmly said, "You're awake now." She recognized her immediately. It was Penelope's maid, exactly like in the game. She tried to speak, but no words came out. The maid simply told her that the bath was ready. That's when Penelope realized something terrifying. She could only speak when the game gave her dialogue choices. While getting ready, she noticed bruises covering her entire body. Some bruises had already started healing, which meant Penelope had been living like this for a long time. Soon, the maid led her to the dining table. Breakfast was already prepared: soup, bread, and tea, but Penelope quickly realized the food had been prepared to make her sick. The maid had served it on purpose, because she wanted to watch Penelope suffer. Then, the game interrupted once again. 3 choices appeared before her: throw the food away, force the maid to eat it instead, or eat it herself. With no idea which choice would keep her alive, Penelope was forced to decide. As she looked at the choices, she immediately recognized the scene. She had played it countless times. She knew exactly where every option led. If she flipped the table, the maid would accuse her of another violent outburst. The Duke would lock her in her room without food or water. If she forced the maid to eat, her younger brother would walk in at the worst possible moment. The maid would throw herself to the floor, and Penelope would be accused of attacking her. Every choice ended in disaster. For a moment, she wished she could press reset, but then she remembered. This wasn't a game anymore. There were no second chances. Only one option remained: eat. She forced herself to swallow the soup. The moment it touched her tongue, She started gagging. Her body instinctively rejected it. She fought to keep it down. She refused to die because of a bowl of soup. Just then, footsteps echoed through the room. The maid suddenly panicked. Master Reynold? A young man with pink hair walked in. Penelope recognized him immediately. It was Reynold, the Duke's second son. Seeing him brought back memories of her previous life, being told she never belonged, being bullied, and being blamed simply for existing. Reynold noticed something was wrong. Before Penelope could say anything, she suddenly threw up. The soup spilled across the table. Reynold froze, then he turned to the maid. "What did you feed her?" The terrified maid tried to explain, but Reynold slammed his hand onto the table. He accused her of serving rotten food to Penelope. Ignoring her excuses, he ordered her to leave. When the butler arrived, Reynold gave a single command: take her away and lock her up. The maid was dragged away, desperately begging for forgiveness. Silence filled the room. Reynold looked at Penelope. He couldn't understand why she had eaten the spoiled food instead of making a scene like she usually did. Penelope stayed silent. She realized something horrifying. If Reynold hadn't arrived at that exact moment, she might have died, and without him witnessing the rotten food, no one would have believed her. Seeing how pale she looked, Reynold suggested calling a doctor. But before she could answer, the game appeared once again. 3 dialogue choices floated before her. Don't bother. Why do you care? Get out of this room. Stop acting nice. It's annoying. Penelope took a deep breath. One wrong answer could still mean death. She chose, don't bother. Reynold glanced at her and replied, fine. He turned to leave, saying that if she refused treatment, no doctor could help her. As he walked away, Penelope noticed the affection meter above his head. To her surprise, it had changed from -10% to -3%. It was still negative, but it had increased for the first time. She realized these affection points could actually change after washing up. She looked into the mirror. Staring back at her was Penelope Eckhart. Pink hair, turquoise eyes, the same beautiful face she had seen countless times in the game, but no matter how beautiful she was still the villain. She remembered Penelope's story. After her merchant father died, the Duke adopted her because she resembled his missing daughter, but she was never treated as family, only as a replacement. No matter how hard she tried, she could never earn their love, and when the Duke's real daughter returned, Penelope became the story's villain. Now she understood. The tragedy had begun the moment the Duke chose to replace one girl with another. Back when she played the game, she never truly understood Penelope's pain, but living in her body, everything felt different. She remembered her own previous life. After years of abuse, she had finally escaped. She had made it into college, and finally found a place she could call home. But instead of freedom, she had awakened in a world even crueler than the last. After just one day as Penelope, she had already experienced how badly she was treated. Even the servants looked down on her. Taking a deep breath, she reminded herself of one important fact. This wasn't a game anymore. There was no reset button. She only had one life, one mistake. And one of the male leads could kill her. If she wanted to survive, she needed a plan. She sat at her desk and wrote down everything she knew. Hard mode had one brutal rule. Gaining affection was incredibly difficult. Losing it was easy. In normal mode, every male lead started with 30% affection. But in hard mode, everyone already hated Penelope. And as long as their affection stayed below 0, a dead ending was always waiting. Now, it was time to analyze the people who could decide her fate. First, Derek Eckhart, then Reynold Eckhart, the 2 adoptive brothers, who could one day decide whether Penelope lived or died. She began organizing everything she knew about the game, starting with the male leads. First, Derek Eckhart, the cold and strict heir of the Eckhart family. He despised Penelope for taking the place of his missing sister. Next, Reynold Eckhart, the Duke's hot-tempered second son. Every time he saw Penelope, he bullied her without hesitation. Looking at the 2 brothers, she couldn't help thinking they were just like the stepbrothers from her previous life. The next name was Callisto Regulus, the crown prince of the empire, a man feared throughout the kingdom as a ruthless madman. In the original story, he always rescued Yvonne whenever she was in danger. But Penelope remembered something far more important. In one ending, He was the one who executed her. Without hesitation, she crossed his name off the list. Staying away from him was the safest option. Next was Winter Verdandi. But his profile was still locked. She only remembered that he always appeared whenever Yvonne was in trouble. With so little information, she decided to leave him for later. Finally, she reached the last male lead. Eccles, a trainee knight serving House Eckhart, once a noble from a defeated kingdom. He was captured in war and later bought by Duke Eckhart. Penelope remembered that he would eventually become one of the Empire's greatest swordsmen. More importantly, she believed he was her best chance of survival. After reviewing everyone, she reached two conclusions. First, she couldn't let any male lead's affection stay below 0. Second, before the real heroine returned, she had to raise one of their affection levels to 100%, because once Yvonne came back, every male lead would stand by her. And the villain they would all target was Penelope. Following the original story meant certain death. She had already escaped one miserable life. She refused to lose this one too. I refuse to die. I'll do whatever it takes to survive. Just then, someone knocked on the door. She quickly hid her notes. A butler's voice came from outside. "My lady, the Duke requests your presence." Penelope turned toward the door. She was surprised. The butler opened the Duke's daughter's door without even waiting for permission. Just then, 3 dialogue choices appeared: throw something, tell him to come himself, or, okay, she chose. Okay, this meeting might be her chance to survive. As she followed the butler through the mansion, a painful memory from her previous life resurfaced. She remembered telling her father she had been accepted into university. When she asked if she could move out, he refused without hesitation. She had thought she had finally escaped that family. Instead, she had awakened in another home where she still didn't belong. Soon, she arrived outside the Duke's study. The butler announced her arrival. A calm voice answered. "Come in." Penelope stepped inside and bowed. Before she could speak, the Duke brought up the incident from that morning. The game immediately displayed another set of dialogue choices, but none of them felt right. So, she did something the game never expected. She ignored every option and answered in her own words. "Your Grace need pay no attention." The Duke slowly repeated her name. Penelope, after a long silence, he reminded her that 6 years had passed since she entered the Eckhart family. Only then did she realize she had been adopted at 12, and she was now 18, which meant the real daughter could return at any time. The Duke continued. He claimed he had given her everything, yet after 6 years, she had accomplished nothing. Penelope listened in silence. Then, 3 more dialogue choices appeared. Argue, defend herself, or kneel and admit everything was her fault. She didn't hesitate. Penelope dropped to her knees. Lowering her head, she whispered, "Father." The Duke froze. "Father?" At that exact moment, a system notification appeared. Hidden quest achieved. "Father," the forgotten name. Then another message appeared. "Would you like to turn off the multiple choice answers?" She carefully read the message. If she turned off the dialogue choices, she would finally be able to speak freely. Believing it was her only chance to survive, she selected yes. Instantly, the dialogue options disappeared. Still kneeling before the Duke, she spoke in her own words for the first time. She admitted she had caused trouble. She apologized for disgracing the Eckhart family, and she promised to reflect on her actions. Finally, she lowered her head. "Please forgive me this one time, Father." The Duke remained silent. Penelope didn't move. Right now, surviving mattered more than her pride. After a long pause, the Duke finally spoke. "I have heard you." He ordered her to stand and warned her not to waste the opportunity she had been given. Penelope thanked him and quietly left the study. She didn't know if she had made the right choice, but one thing was certain. She was still alive. As she walked down the hallway, someone called her name. She turned around. A black-haired young noble was walking toward her. Above his head, his affection meter read 0%. It was Derek Eckhart. Without wasting a moment, Derek confronted her about Emily, her maid. He explained that Emily had faithfully served the Eckhart family for nearly 10 years. She was the only person willing to become Penelope's maid. But now, she had been dismissed. Looking straight at Penelope, he asked, "Are you happy now?" Just then, the dialogue choices suddenly appeared again, even though she had turned them off. Confused, she checked the settings. The feature was definitely disabled. So why were they still appearing? Before she could figure it out, Derek demanded an answer. Penelope apologized for keeping him waiting. Then she bowed her head. She admitted she had caused trouble. She confessed she had acted selfishly. And if her actions had driven Emily away, then she didn't deserve another maid. She had already apologized to the Duke. Now, she asked Derek to forgive her as well. Everything she said came from the heart. If honesty was the reason she had survived today, then honesty would become her greatest weapon. After a long silence, Derek finally spoke, just this once. He let the incident go, but warned her there would never be a second chance. Penelope quietly accepted. As Derek turned to leave, her vision suddenly blurred. She hadn't eaten since morning. The spoiled food had left her completely drained. Her legs gave out. Just before she hit the floor, Derek caught her. "I heard you ate spoiled food. Should I call a doctor?" At that moment, Penelope realized something. Derek already knew the rotten food wasn't her fault, yet he had only come to question her about Emily. She quietly refused. "No, my lord." She gently stepped away and left, lying on her bed. Penelope let out a deep sigh. She had survived another day. She also realized something important. Even after disabling the dialogue system, the choices still appeared sometimes. But now, she could ignore them, thinking back. She decided never to approach Derek again. Out of all the male leads, he was the hardest to read, exhausted. She slowly drifted to sleep. Then, a nightmare began. She saw a young Penelope, surrounded by people accusing her of stealing Yvonne's necklace. She desperately denied it, but no one believed her. A servant claimed Penelope had been sneaking near Yvonne's room. The Duke gave a single order: search every room, including Penelope's. She immediately realized what was about to happen. Someone was going to plant the necklace in her room. She tried to stop them, but before she could, someone struck her from behind. She crashed to the floor. Standing over her was Reynold. He looked at her with complete contempt. From that day on, Penelope was branded a thief. No matter how many times she insisted she was innocent, no one believed her, not the Duke, not her adoptive brothers. After that incident, the servants treated her with even more contempt, and from that day forward, Penelope never called the Duke father again. Suddenly, someone knocked on her door. The butler stepped inside and explained that, after Emily's punishment, a new maid needed to be assigned to her. Then Penelope noticed something. He had entered the bedroom of a noble lady. She stopped him. Instead of discussing the maid, she asked his name. Farpan. Then she calmly pointed out that barging into a young noblewoman's bedroom without permission could destroy her reputation. The butler's face turned pale. He immediately dropped to his knees and apologized. Penelope dismissed him, but agreed to let him choose another maid. After he left, she realized something. Maybe she had been too passive all this time. If she wanted to survive, she could no longer act like a victim. A little later, the head housekeeper arrived to discuss her new maid. Penelope asked about Emily. The housekeeper explained that Emily hadn't been fired. She had only been reassigned to laundry duty as punishment. Without hesitation, Penelope said, "Send Emily back to me." The housekeeper tried to refuse, but Penelope didn't back down. She even offered to speak directly to the Duke and have Emily forgiven. Hearing that, the housekeeper immediately changed her mind. She agreed to send Emily back. At that moment, Penelope understood something. No one in this mansion truly respected her authority. Whenever something went wrong, the adopted daughter was always blamed first. But this time, she refused to remain the victim. She wouldn't let anyone decide her fate anymore. With that resolve, she dismissed the housekeeper. "You may leave." The next morning, Emily entered with breakfast. Her hands were trembling. She quietly set the meal on the table. Penelope looked at her, then calmly said, "Emily." She held out her hand. "Give me the needle." Emily froze. Then her face turned pale. She fell to her knees and begged for forgiveness, without another word. She handed over a small sewing needle. Penelope had learned that the original Penelope was woken up every morning by Emily secretly pricking her with that very needle. She looked at Emily. "Watch carefully." Without hesitation, Penelope drove the needle into the back of her own hand. Blood immediately began to flow. Emily screamed in shock. She burst into tears, but Penelope remained calm. Today it's one wound. Tomorrow it could become two, then three. If this continues, I'll keep accepting everything. The dirty water, the clothes, the food, everything. Then she lifted Emily's chin. Everything depends on how you behave from now on. Emily stood there speechless. From that moment, Penelope knew keeping Emily close was safer than driving her away. Suddenly, the bedroom door burst open. Reynolds stormed inside. His affection was still -3%. Pointing at Penelope, he shouted, "You!" Penelope calmly dismissed Emily. She quickly hurried out of the room. Reynolds marched up to Penelope, demanding to know what she was planning. Penelope simply replied, "It's nothing. Don't concern yourself." Reynolds immediately snapped back. He reminded her that Emily had served her rotten food. Then he accused Penelope of bringing shame to the Eckhart family. He warned her to remember her place, claiming there were countless people who would gladly serve the Eckhart family in Emily's place. Penelope suddenly let out a small laugh. Reynolds frowned. He mocked her for becoming so pathetic, that even a maid dared to serve her rotten food while she did nothing. But Penelope didn't argue. She had already realized the truth. Everyone in the Eckhart household had always looked down on the Duke's adopted daughter. Reynolds proudly claimed he had ordered Emily to be thrown out. That's when Penelope revealed the truth. Emily wasn't being dismissed. Reynolds was completely caught off guard. Penelope explained that neither the Duke nor Derek had ordered Emily's dismissal. Reynolds couldn't believe she intended to keep the maid who had poisoned her food. Penelope calmly asked one question. "Can you guarantee the next maid won't do the same?" Reynolds fell silent. Penelope knew replacing Emily wouldn't solve anything. The real problem wasn't one maid. It was the entire household. Then she told Reynolds what had really happened yesterday. She hadn't gone to the Duke to punish Emily. She had gone to apologize. She had even knelt before him and begged for forgiveness. Reynolds was stunned. He couldn't believe Penelope had done that willingly. Penelope explained that she had promised to stop causing trouble and wanted to end everything peacefully. Reynolds exploded. He called her spineless, saying he'd rather see her throwing tantrums like before. For the first time, Penelope confronted him. She reminded Reynolds about the necklace that had been hidden in her room. Everyone had blamed her because they wanted to believe she was guilty. Reynolds froze. Penelope didn't want to argue about the past anymore. She admitted she had made mistakes too, but she was tired. Her coming-of-age ceremony was approaching, and she couldn't cling to the Eckhart family forever. For the first time, Reynolds had no response. Penelope calmly ended the conversation. "It's time for my bath, please leave." Reynolds stood there in silence. Then, the system window appeared. His affection didn't fall. It rose from -3% to 3%. Penelope couldn't hide her surprise. Before leaving, Reynolds muttered, "I was stupid to worry about you." Then he turned around and walked away. Watching him leave, Penelope smiled to herself. "I guess he's not Mr. Negative anymore." The next day, Emily entered carrying a sealed letter. It was an invitation from the royal palace, a banquet celebrating the second prince's birthday. The banquet was the very next day. Hearing that, Penelope realized her probation had finally ended. Then a terrifying memory surfaced. This was the banquet where she would meet the crown prince for the first time, and in every route she had ever played. Meeting him ended the same way. Death. Emily noticed her pale expression, but Penelope simply asked to be left alone. After Emily left, she desperately searched for a way out. Could she pretend to be sick? No. With Derek, that would only make things worse. She couldn't even remember enough details about the event. One thought kept repeating in her mind. Would dying here send her back to her original world? She had no answer. The next day, the servants surrounded Penelope, preparing her for the banquet. They brought luxurious dresses, jewelry, and elaborate hairstyles. But Penelope refused all of it. She chose a simple dark green dress with a high neckline, then asked Emily to bring matching gloves. The wounds on her hands had not fully healed. She couldn't let anyone see them. Soon, it was time to leave. Outside, a carriage was waiting. Derek stood beside it. Penelope glanced at the affection meter above his head. It had risen to 5%. Without thinking, she stepped into the carriage. A moment later, Derek followed and sat beside her. Only then did it hit her. They were heading to the royal palace, together, and waiting for her there was the one man she feared the most, the Crown Prince. Startled, Penelope asked if Derek really intended to ride with her. He calmly replied, "If you don't like it, take another carriage." She quietly shook her head. "I don't." Derek looked at her for a moment. Then, the affection meter above his head rose from 5% to 6%. The rest of the journey passed in complete silence. Finally, the carriage stopped. They had arrived at the royal palace. Penelope let out a quiet sigh of relief. At least she had survived the trip. Derek stepped out first, then extended his hand toward her. "Take my hand." After a brief hesitation, she accepted. Together, they entered the palace. As they walked, Derek gave her one warning. "Don't do anything foolish." Penelope quietly nodded. "I'll be careful." The banquet hall was already filled with nobles. While everyone warmly greeted Derek, Penelope could feel countless eyes on her. Noble ladies whispered behind her back. Rumors spread from one group to another. She ignored them all. Her only goal today was to survive and leave the palace alive. After separating from Derek, she stood alone. Then, the atmosphere suddenly changed. A handsome, blonde prince entered the hall. Penelope recognized him immediately. It was the second prince. He welcomed the guests and officially declared the banquet open. But the moment he finished speaking, the massive doors swung open. The entire hall fell silent. Every noble turned toward the entrance. Penelope froze, then an announcement echoed through the palace. "His Highness, the Crown Prince," the man Penelope feared most, Callisto Regulus, had arrived. Whispers spread through the banquet hall. "What's all that blood?" Then someone noticed. The Crown Prince was dragging a man behind him. Callisto Regulus walked in, pulling the bloodied messenger across the floor. He stopped before the second prince. "Happy birthday, little brother." Then casually threw the wounded man onto the floor. The hall fell silent. The second prince demanded an explanation. Callisto answered as if nothing had happened. He claimed the messenger had made delivering the invitation too troublesome, so he had taught him a lesson. Then, without warning, he kicked the injured messenger again. The man's scream echoed through the hall. No one dared to stop him. Watching everything unfold, Penelope realized something. None of this had ever appeared in the game. She had never known the hostility between the two princes ran this deep. Suddenly, a system window appeared. Quest updated. A new episode has begun. The Blood and Iron Crown Prince, Callisto Regulus. Another message followed. "Would you like to be teleported to the maze garden?" Penelope stared at the screen. She had come here to survive. But another thought crossed her mind. If dying in this world sent her back to her original life, maybe this was her chance. Without hesitating, she pressed yes. In an instant, the banquet hall vanished. She found herself alone. Inside a maze garden, everything looked exactly like it had in the game. She took a deep breath, then began walking. After a while, a sparkling light appeared ahead. She followed it until she reached a quiet fountain. Then suddenly, a cold blade touched her neck. A voice whispered behind her. "Isn't this the rabid dog of Eckhart?" Penelope froze. Callisto stood behind her, his sword pressed against her throat. "You followed me. Have you grown tired of living?" He smiled. "Tell me, why did you come here?" The blade pressed even closer. Penelope instinctively searched for the reset button, but it never appeared. Callisto watched her in silence, then smiled even wider. "Go on. Resist. I'll gladly deliver your final words to the Eckhart family." Callisto slowly raised his sword. Panic took over. "Wait," the Crown Prince stopped. "Oh, so you finally have something to say? I'll talk." He eased the blade slightly. "Go on." Penelope's mind went completely blank. She desperately searched for anything that would keep her alive. Callisto waited, then his patience ran out. "I hate being interrupted." The sword pressed against her neck again, in desperation. Penelope blurted out, "I like you." Callisto froze. "What?" Without thinking, she doubled down. "I'm in love with your highness." Even she couldn't believe what she had just said. After a long silence, Callisto asked, "If that's true, what do you like about me?" Penelope's heart nearly stopped. She forced out an answer. "Your looks. And you're an exceptional swordsman." Callisto stared at her for a long moment. Then, he lowered his sword. "Fine, I'll let you go this time. But the next time we meet, you'd better give me a proper explanation." Penelope nodded without hesitation. Callisto turned and walked away. Then, something unbelievable happened. The affection meter above his head appeared, 2%. She stared at it in disbelief. Callisto suddenly stopped. Without turning around, he said, "You may leave, unless you'd rather play another game with my sword." "No," Penelope answered immediately. The crown prince walked away, watching him disappear. Penelope finally accepted the truth. There was no reset button. This wasn't a game anymore. This world was real. Tears filled her eyes. The only way to survive now was to raise one of the male lead's affection. Unable to hold it back any longer, she burst into tears. "I don't want to die," but at that very moment, someone grabbed her wrist from behind. Penelope froze. Penelope immediately struggled. "Let me go." Terrified, she cried, "I don't want to die." A calm voice answered, "My lady, are you all right?" She slowly looked up. Kneeling before her was a silver-haired young man above his head. His affection meter read 0%. She recognized him instantly. It was Winter, a marquis and a powerful sorcerer. Gradually, she calmed down. Only then did she realize Callisto was gone. Winter noticed the blood running down her neck. He offered to take her to a doctor, but Penelope refused. She wanted to return to the banquet hall. Instead, Winter handed her a handkerchief. "Use this to stop the bleeding." Penelope accepted it. She promised to repay him someday. Winter simply smiled. "I only hope. The next time we meet, the sadness has left your eyes." Then he quietly walked away. As he disappeared, his affection meter suddenly rose from 0% to 9%. Penelope watched him leave. Moments later, her vision went dark. She collapsed. Derek rushed to her side. "Quick, call a doctor." As consciousness faded, painful memories from her previous life came flooding back. She saw herself as a schoolgirl, surrounded by classmates plotting to beat her. The next memory, she returned home covered in bruises, trying to pretend nothing had happened. But when someone questioned her, she finally snapped. "Since when did you start caring about me? Just leave me alone." In the present, Penelope slowly opened her eyes. A familiar voice called out, "Hey, are you awake?" Still dazed, she looked toward the blurry figure standing before her, then softly whispered, "I hate you." She repeated, "I really hate you. 1,000 times more than you hate me." Then, the memories faded away. The next morning, Penelope slowly opened her eyes. Emily rushed to her side. "My lady, you're awake." She explained that Penelope had been unconscious for 4 days. Then she revealed something unexpected. The Duke, and both young masters, had been worried about her the entire time. After she collapsed at the banquet, Derek had personally carried her home. The Duke even summoned the capital's finest doctor. Penelope found it hard to believe, but one thing was certain. The Eckhart family had taken her conditions seriously. Emily then reminded her. The Duke wanted to see her as soon as she recovered. A little later, the butler arrived to escort her. As they walked through the mansion, something felt different. The butler treated her with unusual respect. Even the other servants stepped aside. It almost felt as if her status in the mansion had changed. Finally, she entered the Duke's office. He was already waiting. Penelope bowed. Before the Duke could speak, she apologized first. She was ready to accept any punishment. But the Duke raised his hand. "Enough!" Then he gave her a surprising order. "Stand up." Confused, Penelope slowly obeyed. The Duke looked straight at her. "No Eckhart bows before anyone. As long as you carry the Eckhart name, no one has the right to make you kneel, not even royalty." Penelope stood there in stunned silence. Then the Duke calmly continued, "I did not call you here today to rebuke you." The Duke had only one question. "What exactly happened between you and the Crown Prince?" Penelope carefully explained. She had wandered into the garden, got lost, and accidentally ran into him. The Duke frowned. "So because he was in a bad mood, he slashed your neck." Before Penelope could explain further, the Duke unexpectedly smiled. "Very good." She stared at him in confusion. To the Duke, her injury was valuable. Now the entire empire would see the Crown Prince as the one at fault. Then he declared, "You are a worthy Eckhart, Penelope." He explained that the Crown Prince had grown too arrogant after winning the war, and after this incident, House Eckhart finally had leverage against him. Listening quietly, Penelope realized she had never understood how complicated the royal family's politics really were. When the Duke finished, he surprised her again. "You deserve a reward." Instead of punishment, he offered her anything she wanted from the Empire's finest jeweler. Penelope politely replied that she would think about it first. As she left the office, a system notification appeared. Relationship with the Duke's household has improved. Reputation points +5. Back in her room, Emily handed her a freshly washed handkerchief. It was Winter's, the one he had used to stop the bleeding on her neck. Penelope smiled. She decided she would return it the next time they met. Then Emily mentioned that preparations for the upcoming hunting festival had already begun. Hearing those words, Penelope remembered something important. Every male lead had already appeared, except one, Eccles. During the hunting festival, he was still a slave. For the first time, she realized she had a chance to reach him before anyone else. She made up her mind. "I'll find him before the Duke does." Looking at the image of the young knight, she quietly declared, "I've chosen you." Several days later, Penelope wandered through the vast Eckhart estate. She was searching for one thing, a secret passage. If she could find it before the hunting festival, she could leave the mansion without anyone noticing. But the estate was enormous. After searching for hours, she sat beneath a tree to rest. Just then, she heard footsteps. Thinking it was Emily, she called out, but when she looked up, it was Derek. He quietly asked, "Are you feeling better?" Before she could answer, he handed her a cup of tea. Emily had been too busy caring for Penelope, so Derek had delivered it himself. After a brief silence, Penelope apologized for causing trouble at the royal palace. Derek stopped her. Instead, he unfolded a pink scarf. "You can't keep walking around with a bandage." Then he added, "And stop carrying things that belong to other men." Only then did Penelope realize he was talking about Winter's handkerchief. She had expected another lecture. Instead, she received a gift. She accepted the scarf and thanked him. As Derek walked away, the affection meter above his head quietly changed. 10%. Penelope couldn't understand him at all, compared to the others. Derek's affection was impossible to predict. After he left, she continued searching the estate. Then suddenly, she found it. A hidden passage. It was tucked away near the training grounds, the perfect way to leave the estate unnoticed. Penelope immediately remembered why she needed it. During the hunting festival, a slave auction would take place in the capital, and before the Duke could buy him, she had to find Eccles first. Quietly, she smiled. "Eccles, I hope you're worth all this trouble." Then suddenly, a voice came from behind her. "What are you doing there?" Penelope froze. She turned around and saw a pink-haired young man staring at her. Penelope immediately recognized the pink-haired young man. It was Reynold. His affection meter now read 7%. Trying to stay calm, she asked what he was doing there. Reynold replied that he had just finished training nearby. Then he looked at her suspiciously. "What are you doing here?" Penelope brushed it off. Reynold gave her one warning. "Don't do anything stupid." Then he walked away. The moment he left, a system notification appeared. Special event. Explore the hunting festival with Reynold. Reward, +15% affection and a secret item. Penelope froze. She had never seen this event before, but without a second thought, she selected no. She had something far more important to do. That night, wearing a dark cloak, Penelope quietly slipped through the estate. She reached the hidden passage and lowered herself down the outer wall with a rope. Everything seemed to be going perfectly, until she realized the rope was too short. She was left hanging in midair. Then a familiar voice called out, "Hey!" It was Reynold. He was leaning out of his bedroom window. "What the hell are you doing?" Only then did Penelope realize his room was directly below hers. Thinking quickly, she made up a ridiculous excuse. "I'm just going out for a while." Reynold wasn't buying it. The rope broke. Penelope plummeted toward the ground. Without hesitating, Reynold jumped after her. As they fell, he reached out and caught her in his arms. They crashed to the ground together, holding her tightly. Reynold quietly said, "I got you." Once they landed safely, he demanded to know where she was going. Penelope admitted she wanted to sneak out to the hunting festival. She asked him to keep it a secret, promising she'd take full responsibility if anything happened. To her surprise, Reynold simply replied, "Then I'll come with you." The two quietly made their way toward the festival. But just before they reached the entrance, a familiar voice stopped them. It was Derek. After hearing Penelope's explanation, he calmly decided to accompany them as well. Before she knew it, both Eckhart brothers were escorting her. The hunting festival was packed with people. As Penelope browsed the stalls, a bracelet with a pink gemstone caught her eye. Before she could say anything, Reynold offered to buy it for her. The unexpected gesture left her speechless. Instead of buying it, Penelope questioned the merchant about the area. She was secretly searching for another destination. Just then, a loud explosion echoed through the festival. People immediately rushed toward the sound. Fireworks lit up the night sky. As the crowd surged forward, Penelope nearly lost her footing. Derek grabbed her hand to keep her from being swept away. Then, someone secretly slipped a small object into her palm. By the time she looked up, the mysterious person had vanished. She opened her hand. It was a golden token engraved with a rose. Suddenly, a system notification appeared. New route unlocked. A slave from a defeated nation likes you. Proceed. Yes/no. Before Penelope could choose, the notification disappeared on its own. Curious about the token, she quietly slipped away from the festival. She arrived at a hidden entrance guarded by masked attendants. They demanded an invitation. Penelope hesitated, then showed them the golden token. The guards immediately stepped aside. She was escorted into a secret underground auction. Inside, the auctioneer announced the final item of the night, a slave from the barbarian kingdom of Delman. A battered young man in chains was brought onto the stage. His body was covered in scars. The moment Penelope saw him, she recognized him instantly. Eccles, the fifth male lead. The auctioneer invited the crowd to witness why Eccles was so infamous. Then, the cage suddenly shook. Inside the underground auction, 3 massive beasts surrounded Eccles. He had no weapon, no armor. His hands and feet were still chained. Yet, he faced them without fear. The first beast attacked. Eccles dodged at the last second, using his chains like swords to strike back. The other beasts charged one after another. Despite his restraints, he countered every attack. After a brutal fight, the final beast collapsed, covered in fresh wounds. Eccles was the last one standing. The crowd erupted into applause. The auction officially began. Bidding started at 50,000 gold, then skyrocketed into the millions. Penelope joined the bidding. The price kept climbing. 2 million, 4 million, 6 million, 8 million, 10 million, just as the auction was about to end. A shocking bid echoed through the hall, 100 million gold. The entire room fell silent, without hesitation. Penelope bought Eccles for 100 million gold. She was escorted to a private room to complete the purchase. There, an attendant handed her a control ring. He explained that Eccles' golden collar was magical. With the ring, his owner could inflict unbearable electric shocks or even decide his life and death. To prove it, the attendant activated the collar. Instantly, Eccles screamed in agony. The moment the attendant activated the magic collar, electricity tore through Eccles' body. He collapsed to the floor in agony. Watching the torture, Penelope silently vowed never to use the ring herself. When the shock finally ended, Eccles slowly stood up. Ignoring everyone's warnings, Penelope walked straight toward him. His affection was still 0%. She looked him in the eyes. "I paid 100 million gold for you. I didn't buy you out of pity. You're an investment." She made one thing clear. He had nowhere else to go, so from now on, he belonged to her. After a long silence, Eccles quietly nodded. Penelope immediately ordered the attendants to remove his shackles. Moments later, Eccles stood beside her, finally free of his chains. As they prepared to leave, the auction house owner rushed over. Then he demanded payment. Penelope calmly replied. She would pay 1 million gold now, and the remaining 99 million later. Then she smiled. "If someone had bid 101 million, I would have paid 1 billion. The owner was furious. He reached toward Penelope, but before anyone could react, a blur shot past him. The owner's arm twisted unnaturally. Blood splattered across the room. Everyone froze. No one could believe the chained slave had moved that fast. The moment Eccles broke the auction owner's arm, chaos erupted. The attendants rushed him, but one after another, they were effortlessly thrown aside. Within seconds, the room was covered in blood. Even Penelope was shaken. She had never imagined Eccles could be this terrifying. He slowly walked toward Penelope. Then, to everyone's surprise, he knelt before her. "Master," he apologized for losing control. A system notification appeared. Eccles' affection, 18%. Without a word, Penelope gently lifted his chin. Eccles respectfully kissed the back of her hand. The next morning, Penelope returned to the Eckhart estate with Eccles. The servants rushed over in panic. She had been missing all night. The Duke had been furious. When Penelope ordered the butler to prepare a room for Eccles, he refused, but Penelope stood her ground. Eccles belonged to her now. Just then, Reynolds arrived. The moment he saw Penelope, he ordered her to report to the Duke immediately. Before she left, Reynolds noticed the ragged young man beside her. He demanded to know who he was. Penelope simply instructed Eccles to wait with the butler. Then she headed to the Duke's office. The Duke looked directly at her, then calmly said, "Explain yourself." Penelope stood before the Duke, ready to explain everything. She admitted she had secretly gone to the hunting festival without permission and got separated from the crowd. She revealed that she was nearly attacked by another noble, but a slave she had just purchased saved her. That slave was Eccles. Hearing this, the Duke immediately became concerned for her safety. Then Penelope made her real request. Instead of asking for jewelry or another reward, she wanted to keep Eccles by her side. First, she asked if he could become an apprentice knight of House Eckhart. The Duke refused. No matter how talented Eccles was, a former slave couldn't simply become an Eckhart knight. But Penelope wasn't finished. "If he can't become a knight, then I want him as my personal bodyguard." The Duke was surprised. She had lived safely in the mansion for years. Why did she suddenly need a bodyguard? Penelope gave her answer. She didn't trust the family's knights to protect her. If her life was at stake, she wanted to choose the person who would stand beside her. The Duke fell silent, carefully considering her request. The Duke left without giving Penelope an answer, but judging by his reaction, she was confident he'd accepted her request. Then, a system notification suddenly appeared. Event failed. Festival date with Derek. The reward was gone. Penelope brushed it off and left the room. As she walked through the mansion, Reynolds stopped her. Before he could question her, she noticed someone standing beside him. It was Eccles. Without hesitation, she walked over. "Come here, Eccles." Reynolds couldn't understand why she had chosen a slave to become her personal bodyguard. Penelope calmly explained, if Eccles hadn't saved her at the festival, she would have died. That single sentence left Reynolds speechless. Then another notification appeared. Event failed. Festival date with Reynolds. The system even offered her another chance. Penelope immediately selected no as she walked away. She heard footsteps behind her. It was Eccles. He explained that she had ordered him to follow her. Penelope studied him for a moment, then gave him his very first mission. Make everyone in the Eckhart mansion acknowledge you. If you want to stay here, earn their respect. Eccles quietly accepted the order. Just as he turned to leave, Penelope stopped him with one final question. She looked him straight in the eyes. "Do you believe you'll never betray me?" Penelope checked Eccles' status. His affection had already climbed to 20%. For the first time, she felt she had chosen the right person. Before leaving, Eccles promised he would earn everyone's approval. Penelope watched him go, believing he might become the key to surviving this world. Days passed. The Duke allowed Eccles to remain in the mansion. One afternoon, Emily brought Penelope a pair of beautiful lapis lazuli earrings she had ordered before the festival. But Penelope barely looked at them. She had something far more important on her mind. She asked Emily if she knew anyone connected to an information broker. Emily remembered an old acquaintance, a broker named Lena. Penelope immediately gave Emily a secret mission. She would write down everything she knew about someone, and Emily had to deliver that information to Lena. Penelope knew that if the request reached the Empire's famous intelligence network, finding that person would become much easier. The person she wanted to find was Yvonne Eckhart. Unlike the original story, Penelope had no intention of waiting for fate. This time, she would make the truth come to her. Ever since the incident with the Crown Prince, Penelope couldn't shake the fear of death. Then one day, an invitation from the Imperial Palace arrived. The Crown Prince was hosting a victory banquet. The moment Penelope heard his name, she remembered his chilling words. She had no intention of meeting him again, so she came up with a simple plan. She pretended to be seriously ill, she even called a doctor, just to make the rumor believable. Her goal was clear: stay inside the mansion until the banquet was over. Later, Emily returned with news from the information broker. The broker had accepted Penelope's request and reported a suspicious man wearing a white rabbit mask. Knowing her plan was finally in motion, Penelope dismissed Emily. As rain poured outside, old memories and the fear of dying once again crept back into her mind. Unable to stay trapped in her room, she wandered through the mansion to clear her head. Then, she heard the sharp sound of a sword cutting through the rain. Curious, she followed it to the training grounds. There, a lone figure was relentlessly practicing in the pouring rain. As Penelope looked closer, she finally recognized who it was. There, she found Eccles, training alone, soaked to the bone. He kept swinging his sword without stopping. As Penelope stepped closer, Eccles sensed someone behind him. Instinctively, he pointed his wooden sword straight at her. The moment he realized who it was, he immediately lowered it, dropped to one knee, and begged for punishment. Instead of getting angry, Penelope asked why he was training in the pouring rain. Eccles finally admitted the truth. He wanted to become strong enough to be accepted as her personal bodyguard. He was training every day just to protect her. Penelope smiled. "I'm proud of you." She offered him a reward for all his hard work. After a moment of hesitation, Eccles revealed his only wish. He simply wanted to see her more often. He thought she had forgotten him. Hearing that, Penelope promised he could meet her whenever he wanted. Then she noticed him shivering. She ordered him to stop training immediately. "This is an order." Before leaving, she gave him one final reassurance: only foolish masters punish their loyal knights. Then she walked away beneath her umbrella. As she left, Penelope realized something. Winning Eccles' trust would be far more difficult than she had expected. And if she wanted another way to survive, there was one person she needed to meet next: Winter. Penelope received reports from the information brokers she had hired, but every report said the same thing. There wasn't enough information to find the person she was searching for. Then she noticed something strange. She had contacted 4 brokers, but only 3 had replied. The only one who stayed silent was the mysterious broker connected to the white rabbit mask. Without his help, she couldn't move forward with Winter's route. Setting that aside, Penelope decided to reward the maid for all her hard work. Instead of asking for money or jewelry, the maid revealed her true wish. She wanted to become Penelope's personal maid. Then, she dropped to her knees. She confessed that she had once hurt Penelope out of jealousy and begged for one chance to earn her trust. After a long silence, Penelope accepted. The maid couldn't hide her joy. A system notification appeared. Relationship with a duchy servant has improved. Fame +10. Now, Penelope had gained someone who was genuinely loyal, but Winter still hadn't made a move. Just as she was wondering what to do next, something suddenly crashed into her room. Startled, Penelope looked around. Then she heard a tiny voice. She turned and found a small white rabbit-like creature staring back at her. A small white rabbit suddenly appeared inside Penelope's room. Confused, she picked it up, no matter what she asked. The rabbit only replied, "Caillou." Then, out of nowhere, a black message appeared before her. "Your request has been fulfilled." Before Penelope could react, the rabbit's eyes glowed bright red. Then, it spoke. It was no ordinary rabbit. It was a magical messenger from the White Rabbit Circle. Penelope immediately realized this was Winter's secret communication network. A new system notification appeared. New episode, Winter Verdandi. Without wasting a second, Penelope disguised herself so Winter wouldn't recognize her. Then she accepted the invitation. A flash of light surrounded her. When she opened her eyes, she was standing inside the mysterious White Rabbit Circle. The place looked like an ordinary office, filled with books and completely empty. As she waited, the entire building suddenly began shaking. Then, a glowing doorway appeared out of nowhere. Another system message popped up. Hidden quest found. Reveal the magician's secret. At first, Penelope refused. She had learned that hidden quests in hard mode usually brought more danger than rewards. But after a moment's thought, Curiosity won. She accepted. The glowing doorway slowly opened. Beyond it stretched an endless corridor unlike anything she had ever seen. As Penelope stepped inside, she realized the space was impossibly larger on the inside. Magic was real. Then, a strange tremor shook the corridor once again. And from somewhere deep in the darkness, she heard the voices of children. Penelope ventured deeper into the White Rabbit Circle and discovered a hidden hall filled with ancient relics and magical artifacts. Then, a loud crash echoed through the room. Several young magicians were struggling to free a relic trapped inside a massive block of ice. A system notification appeared. Hidden quest. One of Winter's relics can affect his route. Penelope immediately realized they were about to destroy something priceless. She rushed over and stopped them. The students explained they were following Winter's instructions, trying to break the ice with magic. After taking a closer look, Penelope showed them a better method. First, crack the outer layer by hand, then use gentle magic to melt the remaining ice. Working together, they safely freed the relic without damaging it. The students celebrated their success, grateful for Penelope's help. Then, a calm voice echoed from behind. "Who are you?" Penelope froze. She slowly turned around. Standing there was Winter Verdandi. He was surprised that someone had found his hidden workshop. Just as Penelope tried to think of an answer, she noticed something above his head. Winter's affection, 8%, then, without warning, it dropped, 4%, then, 3%. Watching the number fall, Penelope panicked. Before she could explain herself, his apprentices rushed in. They proudly revealed that Penelope had helped them recover an ancient relic without damaging it. Hearing this, Winter realized she wasn't an intruder. Instead of questioning her further, he invited her to his office. There, he apologized for the misunderstanding. Penelope apologized as well. She knew she hadn't come here by accident. She had come because she needed Winter's help. Gathering her courage, she asked him to hear her request. As she spoke, Winter's affection quietly rose, 3% to 6%. Winter warned her that very few people knew he was the man behind the White Rabbit Circle. Normally, anyone who discovered his identity would have their memories erased, but because Penelope had protected his apprentices, he decided not to do it. He assured her that the White Rabbit Circle never betrayed its clients. Then he asked, "What is it that you want?" Penelope looked him straight in the eyes. She asked him to keep everything that happened today a secret.